Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Winner's Circle. I'm here with Shely Aronov. She is the CEO of InnerPlant. And if you haven't heard of InnerPlant, neither had I. This company is helping plants talk to us to make healthier plants. So let's welcome Shely. Shely, welcome to the Winner's Circle and congratulations on the 2026 Big Innovation Award.
Thank you so much, Russ, and thank you for having me. Um, Happy to share more about the company.
Yeah, so most of us don't know about Crop Voice or InnerPlant. Why don't you give us a little introduction about yourself and the company and the product?
Sure. My career has mostly been in starting companies. This is the third one. And I started InnerPlant about, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. I need to look now. 2018, we incorporated. Been a while. The idea was we can make our farming system so much more efficient if we enable crops to tell us what they need. Because the reality is, until this point of time, we've been farming around the plants, not with them. It's a shame because that creates a lot of inefficiencies, whether it's plants that are not treated well or it's over application of different inputs that are unnecessary and polluting. So the idea is incorporating the plants into our farming system. And for a long time, it was really just a development project because we were developing this sci-fi type technology, plants communicating through fluorescent signals. We capture that through different optical equipment. And a lot of people thought it wasn't going to be doable, which is fair, but it's all doable, which is the good news. Crop Voice is the culmination of all of this, which is our first commercial product that we launched in 25 and are scaling this year, where we're using
Yeah,
our
now
first, yeah.
I just want to say that, we pride ourselves on commercialized products. So you've actually deployed this. And so to back up just a second, Crop Voice, the soybeans actually talk to the farmers. So just talk us through how that works a little
How
bit.
that works. So it's not exactly that they talk to them. It's more that we tap into the plant's immune system reaction to the environment. The way it works is plants, even though they seem like they're doing nothing in the environment, they're doing a lot. They're very active. When something's stressing them, for example, a fungus is attacking them or they don't have enough nitrogen, they know how to activate genes to protect them and help them diffuse the stress. We understand those genes on the molecular level, scientists do, but they're all invisible to us. We can't see that reaction within the plant. So what we do is we engineer the crops and we add a line of code. When you're reacting to, for example, fungal pressure, start to produce a new protein, and that creates an optical signal. And that's really the time within the seed. When the crop is starting to react to the stress in the environment, it starts producing a new signal. And then we can capture that signal with optical equipment and tell the farmers, well, this plant is being attacked by fungi and you're not going to see any symptoms for weeks, but this is the right time to act.
So you didn't know this, but I'm also a laser engineer and optical engineer. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I did come
nice.
out of
Okay. I thought you
a
were going to say
fiber
you're a
optics
plant
background.
biologist.
No, I came out of fiber optics, and it's interesting that you're using optical signals to capture this. On the fiber optic side, catching that fiber signal is very tricky. That's where all the kind of complexity lies, and is kind of reading that signal and getting all the data out of it. And I imagine it's even more complex coming out of a soybean.
It probably is, but luckily there's so much infrastructure that capturing the signal, it seemed like it was going to be a massive challenge, and it is from a physics perspective, but it hasn't been a huge hurdle just because so much of the equipment, the algorithms, and the compute power is already there.
So it's a little bit like Pluribus. You've given some code to the soybean. Have you watched Pluribus, the new TV show?
No, are they giving code
So
to?
the concept is code comes down from outer space and they give it to humans, and humans become something different. Um,
Hmm.
so when you genetically modify this soybean, and now you've got this optical signal coming out. What sort of technology are you using to read those signals?
Cameras. It's a fluorescent signal. And the key to all of it is we create a fluorescent signal that's not native to the plants. They do actually have native fluorescence, but we want to be in the non-native areas of the spectra because we want to know what the stress is. And then you can use any hyperspectral cameras. We're also getting down to multispectral cameras. So there's quite a lot of proliferation of different pieces of equipment. The biggest goal for us was satellites because the scale of soybeans and corn is massive. We're talking hundreds of millions of acres. And then once we were able to do that, obviously anything in the middle is easier. So drones, the sprayer, the tractors, handheld, you can do this with any piece of equipment, really.
And so you guys are detecting these signals, and these signals are I think are putting out basically a signal, an alert that there's fungus going on in that plant, right? And so you what do you so you fungus
Then
wipes out
what?
soybeans, right?
So yeah, the first product concept is of soybean that signals fungal pressure. We work in general on soybeans and corn, different stresses of interest to the farmers like insects, nitrogen deficiency. And the idea is, well, fungus is perfect because it can wipe up a crop, but there are fungicides, and for a lot of diseases, they will work. The big tricky problem is farmers need to decide about the application of a fungicide around July in the US, and there's no information available for them to know if the plant is infected without our technology. The symptoms will only show up around August, but by August, the damage is already done. So that's really the key to it, is you can do something to prevent it, just like with human health, right? The idea is, can we find cancer at stage 1 versus 4? Because at stage 1, we can do something about it, but at stage 4, it's just bad news. That's farming. And the whole point is the plants know really, really early. Now we can enable the farmers to know early as well. And then there's different things they can do.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you're kind of the first real-time plant disease detection network, I think is what you guys
Yes,
call it.
that's
What had to go right scientifically to do this?
That's a great question. So many things. Oh my God. If I think about all the lists of things that people thought will not go right. So, one, the genes had to be specific enough. So, when we designed the sensors, we had to be able to alert a fungi, but also make sure that we're not alerting of everything else, right? So, you want to choose genes that are specific to that disease. We needed to generate enough signal because we're looking for signal to noise ratio. So, need to create enough signal in those plants in order to be able to capture it. We need to be able to see it from satellites and remote sensing with enough of that signal to noise ratio. There had to be enough of that time frame between detecting the disease and then taking action for it to have value to the customers. Like, all these different pieces had to come together for this to be valuable. And it's been a lot of checking the boxes for a very long time.
Which was the hardest one to overcome?
I would say the biotech, the development, creating enough signal, mostly because it takes the longest. So the development cycle with plants is you plop the line of code in. That part doesn't take a long time, but then you have to grow the plant up to seed, and then you have to collect those seeds and grow it again, and then you can test if the line of code worked well. And we're talking about, 6 to 12 months of development cycle. So that just makes it hard because of the timelines. And then everything else is a little bit more manageable given you can read or write on hardware and software faster than you can in biology.
I'm wondering, are you getting any false positives? Are the plants actually giving you false positives? Like, can you trust that signal 100%?
They do give some false positives. The good news is everything's trackable, and then we build models behind it. So this year we had about 25 plots of our technology out there, as soybeans. For 26, we'll have 70 to 80 plots. And what we do is we then collect all of the data and correlate it and try to understand what happened. And then what you want to do is really clean out everything that's not valuable. The best example is we actually look for any fungal pressure because there's so many variations. So you can't look for a specific one, you're going to miss everything else. But there's a lot of fungus that is just not reducing yield. So it might create some damage, but it's not significant enough. So we build algorithms to then correlate that plant signal, which luckily is specific from a pattern perspective to the different fungi, into real world environments and agronomy to figure out, is this something that you want to act on, or is this something that is there? It's a fungus, but there's nothing you can do, or it's not worth doing. And that's where the AI models are coming to place.
And now, as we talked about earlier, you actually put this into commercial deployment, and you're scaling it up now. Tell us about that first moment. I think it was this summer that you actually put the soybeans in the field. Tell us about that moment and what it was like for you guys.
Oh, well, yeah. With biotech, there's never enough time. Or at least in our company, we always kind of run ahead of everything. So when we deployed in 25, a few things. One, and I don't think we fully understood this, we didn't have a product when we started selling. We had a technology that we worked for a long time, but the product aspect of it wasn't there. So as we're selling to customers for the season, we're also building the plane as we speak the software, the front end, the delivery to the customer, the content that they're going to get, like all of those things were really getting created. The second challenge was we didn't, going into the season, we knew that the technology works because we've tested it in controlled environments, but we haven't seen natural signals in the field until we saw them this season. So it was really, a lot of pressure until we saw, oh my God, we're starting to see the signals. This works the way we wanted to work in the real environments. And then with that, we had our first infection that we then alerted farmers of, and that's been a great experience overall. So with that, we're able to alert farmers in Nebraska of a white mold, which is a really tough disease that does have a product. And they're able to go out and spray, and there's been some great results on yields. And then we wrapped up the season, and everything felt so much easier going from this year, going from 1 to 100 versus going from 0 to 1. So it was quite a big year for us.
Well, and you've got a tough audience, right? Farmers are generally known to be kind of tough individuals, slow to change. They've definitely adopted technology. I think they were one of the first to have self-driving everything and GPS-enabled machinery. But they're very practical. How do you get the practical kind of marketing at them in that sales pitch? What's the reception been like from that community?
So I actually think farmers, and this is not true for every farmer, but just like every technology, you're going to launch with the early adopters. And the early adopting farmers are very open-minded. They try everything, and there's quite a lot of them. The big issue that a lot of companies see, they're solving for something that's not a real pain point for the customer. So it's kind of like someone's going to come to you with some really cool technology, and they're going to pitch it to you, but it's something you don't care about. And then you're not going to adopt it. That's true for any human, right? Number one, you have to work on something that's top of mind for your customer. Fungal pressure in season is really top of mind because it gives them a lot of anxiety, and there's not much that they can do right now about it. So this is really in July, knowing if your fields are clean or diseased is a big deal. The second part of it that I think people sometimes miss is you got to make it really easy. Like technologies that had adoption, like autosteer that you talked about, it wasn't adopted because it increased yields. It was adopted because now you can drive in the fields and not pay as much attention to having straight lines. What ended up happening is that because the rows were so straight, the yields were higher because you had just a more homogenic field. But
Right.
that was a second consequence of the first one, which was it was just easier. That's the key to every adoption in ag, by the way. First of all, it makes the farmer's life easy. And the reason that's important is because it's all about operation and scale. So you can't really make your life harder because then you have to reduce scale. But I've been wondering about this because if you think about any kind of customer, who adopts something that makes their life harder? We want to adopt
No,
things that
no
make
one.
our life easier. Exactly. So again, you do the two things, and then the value is there in addition to all of that, right? So make their life easier, reduce their risk, and also increase their yields and reduce their costs, and that's how you get their attention.
Yeah. So what are you getting direct feedback from those deployments?
Yeah, the farmers are, I mean, we track all these things super heavily. We're going to have some of the testimonials coming out, which is really exciting. But also, we really track all of our retention numbers, right? Because ag is a very big market. You can technically always get another acre, but we want to make sure we get the same acre twice. And then now we're selling into 26, and we're going to at least 10x our 25 numbers.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so then the goal is actually much higher, but I probably shouldn't talk about it until it happens, but at least 10x because that's going to happen. So yeah, that's how we know that there's
Well, I
demand for what
imagine you
we're
want
selling.
every soybean, right?
Eventually, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the beauty about the whole industry. It's a commodity, right? So they're all very similarly executed on.
So you deployed into 50,000 acres, which to me sounds like, the state of Rhode Island.
Sounds big.
It sounds big. You talked about moving into, 10xing that, going into 500,000 acres. What did you learn from the first one that's going to help you on scaling up?
The biggest thing was everything I described before was we built the plane as we're flying it. That's not very easy, and it doesn't make for great deployment. This time around, we had time to plan. We had a really good commercial GDM strategy, and that's what we implement this year. So everything's working very differently because we know exactly what the customers want. We know how to scale it. Everything is about optimization of costs or making things more efficient in the back end of the product. And then on the sales, we have a really good sales strategy in order to scale. That's been the big difference. And what we do this year is going to be applicable for the following years, which is great.
Well, and you've done something smart, which we do in technology a lot, which is lean on other people and partners and integrate, right? And I think you integrated with the John Deere platform, and I would imagine that gives you, massive kind of uptake into that customer base of, hey, we work with that, John Deere platform when you get alerts and everything else.
Yeah, John Deere has been a great partner in general, and their technology is very synergetic with our technology. So their technologies of equipment that can detect the signal, and then the John Deere operation system that is essentially the front end works really well with our back end, which is the seeds that are communicating the information and the algorithms in the back end. So it's been great to be able to work with them and build something that's so much greater together. I have only good
Yeah.
things to say about John Deere.
Well, that co-creation model, if you're working with farmers and you're working with John Deere to solve real problems, that's how great products are built. So
And the key in
kudos to you
ag,
guys.
I mean, one of my beliefs is ag is a production system. It's not one thing, and there's no silver bullet either. So if you want to create something that works really well for the customer, the farmer, you have to work as a set of companies together so that the technology is integrated and then works flawlessly. If every aspect of the farm is optimized separately, the seed, the chemicals, the equipment, it just doesn't work that well, right? And eventually the customer suffers because it's clunky. So that's really the key, is how do you bring the different pieces? Because at the end of the day, it's all working together. It's not different pieces like it used to be 30 years ago.
Right. No, it's all interconnected. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about these systems now, is that they can, with APIs and connections, you can integrate them very easily. So you guys really have integrated a whole lot into one company. Your biotech,
Yeah,
your data science, your agriculture. What does your team look like? I know you have a background in agriculture and biotech. What does the rest of the team look like?
I don't, by the way, have a background.
No?
Me neither. No, I studied industrial engineering in Israel, and then where I'm from, and then I have an MBA from Stanford. And every company I've ever done is in different domains. So I don't have a background in anything except for I can start things. But that's actually the beauty. So our team it's funny, we're almost 50 people, and we don't have any team that's bigger than 4 or 5 because we have so many domains. I would say we have a biotech team, which is the people that actually do the transformation of the crops and then do all of the phenotyping and the testing in the lab and greenhouses. Then we have our product team that builds the software, the hardware for detection, all the algorithms and the models. And then we have the commercial team. So these are the people that both implement this in the field and then monitor the agronomy aspect of it and sell and support the customer. There's quite a lot of different functions that we have to service.
Yeah, and you're right, and all in the middle of trying to build your product and build all the systems and grow a company and grow
Yeah,
and launch new
never a dull
technology.
moment.
No, not in startup world. So Crop Voice detects that kind of above ground fungus that's in the plant. How are you expanding into other crops and into other threats in the field?
Yeah, 100%. The beauty of the platform is that it does translate really well. You can do this for any crop, and you can do this for any stress as long as it's stressing a plant. The way we think about DNA is you build the building blocks, which is kind of like a Lego house, and then you can change your Legos based on what you're doing. So you take out genes and you put in new genes, or you optimize it different for other crops, but it is optimization versus starting from zero. We already work on corn, and an example of efficiency took us about 3 years to get the soybean pipeline up and running and produce the first sensors that worked well. It took a year to do this in corn with all of
Wow.
the learnings that we had in soy. And then when it comes to stresses, we look for things that are valuable to farmers. And I think that's always the real challenge, is what is it that's going to move the needle for the customer? What do you do about it, right? Drought is a good example. 95% of the soy and corn in the US is rain fed. It's not irrigated. So knowing that you have a drought is basically bad news. And that's not something we want to do, right? There's no value. So you have to find those right problems that are impacting the plant, are reducing yield. There's a solution that you can implement in season in the right timing, and that the ROI is there for the customer. And those are the things we focus on. So that's probably going to be insects and then nutrition problems.
Now, if you look out 5 to 10 years, you've taken over all of soybean at this point.
And hopefully corn. Yeah.
How does agriculture adapt to this? I mean, what does it look like when the plants are constantly talking to the systems?
The best way to think about the future is this. Eventually, this is in every seed. So when a farmer buys a bag of seed, they plant them and the technology is already in there. And as soon as the stress starts, the signals start to generate. And then we create a whole ecosystem, for example, with John Deere, of detection technologies that can detect the signal. And the most kind of optimized system of it all is you get the satellites and the drones to give you a high level detection of problems in real time. And then you are able to send out your sprayer, which is a smart sprayer. So it can go through the field and verify the disease and then do spot application of fungicides only on infected plants. And that's going to be the same for nitrogen. It's going to be the same for insects. So all of a sudden, you're basically doing individualized plant care on the individual plant, but you can do this at the scale of millions of acres, or even for an average farm in the US, 5,000 acres.
Yeah,
And that's how it
that's
all comes
amazing.
together.
Yeah, that's
Thank
amazing.
you.
You're gonna have like personal doctors for every plant.
Exactly. And right now
Yeah.
it's the definitely averages. Right now it's kind of like, well, some acres get fungicides, and if they do, they get it on a 100-acre scale. That's not optimal. It's just the best that we could do with the technologies that we have.
Yeah, well, in the marketing world, when we send a big email out to everybody, we call it a spray and pray, right?
Yeah,
It's the same.
same,
It's the kind of the same in farming, right? You just kind of pray it works. You've been
100%.
in biotech now for a few years building this product. What do you think the biggest misconception is people have about biotech?
So I have a specific one about deep tech in general, and that will fall into biotech will fall into that as well. One of the biggest challenges is this idea that take seed technology. There's companies that develop seed technology, but they want to do it the way that the big companies do, which is a very long development cycle, plus a lot of field data, plus regulatory approvals. So you have 10 to 15 years before you can sell your first product if you want to do it the traditional way. And the problem is you're going to die somewhere in the middle. You either die because you run out of money in development, or, sorry, or
Go
you
ahead.
by the way, if the battery dies, I'll jump back in, but good. So you either die throughout the development cycle, or maybe you make it to the finish line just to find out that, I don't know, maybe the customer never cared about what you had to offer, right? There's always this analysis of they're going to pay this much and they really want this. And I asked them and they said that they want it. So the reality, you only know what something's worth when you ask for money. And if you
Mm.
cannot shorten the development timelines for deep tech, you will fail. That's my consensus about this. So for us, the solution we found is we're launching Crop Voice, which means it's not in every seed. It reduces the regulatory hurdles. It reduces some of the development timelines, but it gave us an opportunity to find out if the demand is there. And now we have the time and the money to get to the finished vision, but also we are actually building and improving it as we go because we have real customer feedback about what they want and what they need. And I think that should be true whether you're doing biotech or you're building a fusion. It doesn't really matter. Like at the end of the day, you cannot try to say, I need $1 billion to prove my point because I need to produce at scale to prove a point and I'm a startup, right? And I've heard a lot of founders say that. It just doesn't work.
So, Shely, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate you jumping on Winter Circle and giving us this view of Crop Voice. It's really exciting to see what you're doing in agriculture, and we can't wait to see what's next for InnerPlant.
Thank you so much for having me and for the award. We appreciate it.
Have a great day.